Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. What are the odds that Ripple will beat the SEC in court? I mean, statistically speaking, like, what are the actual odds? It's actually hard to find data on SEC victories just in general. I'll share with you like a small bit. I quickly realized it was a somewhat futile effort to figure this out, because even if you could find a big number over some longer stretch of time period, it varies dramatically even from year to year. But I'll share with you of what I found here and why I personally believe that, even if Ripple, the company Ripple, doesn't end up defeating the SEC, it does not necessarily mean that XRP will be declared a security. And I think that people are forgetting that. It's not an all or nothing type of thing here, and there are all sorts of ways that things could unfold. And there also could be a settlement, and if there is indeed a settlement, you better believe it's going to be favorable amicably, right? Or else, why would you have a settlement? There's certain things that Ripple will not be willing to let go. I suspect, including the ability to be able to buy and sell XRP. To me, it seems like that's something that's fundamental to them building out the internet of value and utilizing XRP as a bridge currency, managing liquidity in markets. So I don't necessarily see that going away. But there's a fair bit to talk about here. Now, before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you would please ever so delicately tap the like button, I would appreciate the support. And also, I recommend that you treat yourself, girl, by subscribing to the Moon Lambeau channel, which, by the way, is the best channel on all of the YouTubes. There is science behind that, I promise. You don't even need to double check. I do want to make clear also, I don't have a law background of any kind. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I just think it's fun to talk about these topics. It's interesting. I'm an XRP holder myself, and I run this YouTube channel purely as a hobby. So that is all that it is. Just want to be very transparent about that. And so there's a lot to talk about here. Gosh, where do I even want to start? There was this piece from NewsBTC titled, "What are Ripple's chances of beating the SEC in court?" And so, I started Google. Look, and please, trust me, I know how to freaking use Google. I really do. Now, maybe some of you are even better at it than me. But one of the pieces I found, and this is from August of 2015, so it's aged a bit, but it cites that the SEC has prevailed in 90% of the cases in which it brought claims in its own administrative courts, but only 69% of the cases when a federal court judge heard the claims would they end up being victorious. 69%. But again, it doesn't mean necessarily it's like what does a victory look like? It's not necessarily going to be an all or nothing type of thing, as I was saying at the outset here. It could very well be the case, certainly if there's a settlement, like if there's a settlement, or maybe they're going to count that as a victory as well. But there's not going to be a settlement even, I don't think. In which Ripple's like, yeah, this was a security all along. I don't see that happening. Even if there's going to be some sort of fine levied against Ripple, even if there's some sort of acknowledgement that the way in which they were dispersing XRP in particular in the early days was not done correctly, and that's an if. I'm not saying that is the case. That's an if. Even if so, the XRP that we have today, it's super duper clear that it could never possibly reasonably be perceived as a security. And even if you're going through, and don't take my word for it. I mean, fine, look, when I was aware of this problem 3 years ago when I entered the world of crypto and thought about investing in XRP, I understood there was not regulatory clarity in the space sufficiently, and that, fine, SEC could come after Ripple, but I thought after all these years, that probably doesn't seem too likely they'd do it. And then the more years pass, I'm like, yeah, they're just not taking any action. They must implicitly agree that XRP indeed is not a security, right? And so I understood that there was technically potentially a risk that the SEC could bring claims, but all I could do as a layperson was just hear arguments on both sides and then draw my own reasonable conclusion, which is what you do if you're an intellectually honest person. You have to make a life decision. I don't care what the topic is, whether it's politics or religion, or whether or not you're going to purchase XRP in 2017. You got to think through these and then just use your own logical abilities to determine if it makes sense. And it did make sense. And going through even just the Howey test, there are the four corners of it. I'm not going to run through it in this video. I've been talking about it so much the last few days, but It's undeniably true that XRP does not satisfy all four of the prongs of the Howey test. Specifically, if XRP, or if Ripple goes away, rather, XRP continues to persist. How the hell could that be then? In terms of common enterprise, it falls apart even just there. And there are so many other reasons. And so in going through, and I've been sharing a lot of information from this, there was John Deaton. I'm sure many of you in the community are now aware of him. He's become quickly a rock star in the community. He's a lawyer based out of, is Rhode Island? Yeah, it's Rhode Island. Based out of Rhode Island. The community's just been rallying around this guy. And he's an XRP holder, and he saw all this come down, and he spent a good week like just working in the, he's so late. You guys, I'm going to have to put a link below. There was a link to a video where he was, it was just yesterday, and I watched the whole thing. It was almost 2 hours, hour and 48 minutes long, I think. And he was interviewed. It was On the Chain Live was the YouTube account. And he said a lot, which was really, really cool to hear from an actual lawyer. The legal position as to why what the SEC is doing makes sense. And one of the things that he said, by the way, he's like, you know what? If I were an SEC lawyer, I sure as hell would not want to have to be the one to take on this, because if you were going to have to convince a jury that XRP is a security, oh my gosh, there are so many independent use cases that just make it just flies in the face of logic. The whole thing unravels so quickly. And so this is where John Deaton here, attorney out of Rhode Island, he's like, yeah, that's a good lesson. So what he put out was this memorandum in support of Writ of Mandamus. I now know how to pronounce it because I heard him say it finally in this video. I was like, is that Mandamus? I don't freaking know. Man, I'm not gonna pretend like I know. Like, this is Writ of Mandamus. This is not normal human speak. This is lawyer speak. So of course I didn't know. But anyway, so he put this out, and among other things, the purpose of this is to get action taken it's with the effort, of course, is protecting XRP holders, get this claim out of here from the SEC, this whole notion of XRP being a security. Like, if you want to go after Ripple, go after Ripple for whatever you want to go after, but don't drag XRP into this, especially as it exists today. And so we'll have to see how this unfolds, and he kind of explained that in the interview. But suffice it to say, he may be bringing in 6 months a class action lawsuit against the SEC. And the reason for the 6-month delay, it's just a legal requirement. Once you put out the writ of mandamus here, there has to be time for the SEC to respond. Perhaps they even adjust something. If not, there could potentially be a class action lawsuit. And one of the things that John brought up that really caught my attention, he said that, if you consider the biggest cases the SEC has had against any entity, he cited Enron, which collapsed in the early 2000s, I'm sure you're aware, and also the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. And he said the amazing thing is what's happened, the financial devastation that's occurred as a result of the SEC going after Ripple, the financial devastation in XRP markets was greater than both of those. And mind you, and here's why this is important, the SEC rightfully went after Bernie Madoff and Enron. There were fraud charges which were proven to be true. In this case, the SEC caused even more damage than happened there, and they're not even alleging in any way that Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse or Chris Larson were fraudulent to any degree. Yet they still went forward with this devastating, in cases, seriously, and I do mean this literally, this is not hyperbole, people's livelihoods. And so I was just like, holy hell, it's just absolutely astonishing what has happened here. And so, it gets into this whole thing where it's like, why is he doing this? And I mentioned this in another video, but it's short, so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. It's like, because here's another thing John said in that video with On the Chain. He's like, it is so irrational that they're bringing these charges, that the only logical reason that he could think of that they're doing it is to try and force a settlement, basically like overcharging. And so you can see here's on page, I guess it starts on, this is page 54 up here, where they have the title anyway, motive to force settlement. The only logical explanation for why the SEC would allege that XRP continues today to be a security is to force a settlement. It is an often common tactic for a prosecutor to overcharge a defendant in an effort to cause panic and or fear and or force a settlement/plea. If the SEC wanted to hold these two executives liable, it could have done so separately by alleging specific distributions made by them personally at specific periods of time, constituted securities. But as demonstrated, XRP itself today is not a security. According to the SEC, the parties entered into statute of limitations tolling agreements. Therefore, the parties discussed a potential resolution or settlement. This statement is corroborated by Garlinghouse in his letter to Ripple employees when he states that he and Larson could have settled separately but chose to fight the charges. Clearly, a pre-filing settlement was out of the question. Thus, the SEC possibly employed a kitchen sink approach to the charges and threw everything in, including the kitchen sink. Simply put, the SEC filed the most aggressive complaint they possibly could in order to inflict the greatest harm they could in order to bully or coerce a party to settle. And let me tell you, what's one of the most disgusting things about this? In nowhere in this charge that the SEC put up against Ripple here, there was not one single sentence where they acknowledged any XRP holders and what this would do to them bringing these charges. Of course, there's no mention. They don't care. So their whole mission is allegedly to protect us. Do you feel safer because of these SEC actions that are completely nonsensical? Considering the DOJ already considered XRP to be a virtual currency, and you can think about all of these transactions. This is another thing John cited in the video too. He's like, the transactions with MoneyGram, this or that. They went out of their way before they transacted with MoneyGram to say, hey, SEC, just so you know, here's what we're doing. And so he made an analogy. It was like, so if you're a drug dealer, do you go to like any sort of law enforcement and say, just so you know, going to be moving this illegal drug around, and then if you did that, do you think that law enforcement might take action? It's like, I'm sorry, you're doing what now? Because the SEC knew, and it wasn't a problem then, until suddenly it was, and you just got to question why. There's some sort of motive here. There's something that the timing is super wacky after allowing Ripple to perform openly on the market the way it has for 7 years, whatever it's been. It's just, it flies in the face of all reason. And so as far as the odds of the SEC being victorious, I'm just sharing with you that, especially after seeing what attorney John Deaton stated he said a lot. You should check it out if you got the time. Hour and 48 minutes, I believe. But he made it so crystal clear that he just doesn't see how possibly you could get a judgment claiming, ultimately determining that XRP is actually functionally a security as it exists today. It's just absurd to think that could possibly be the case. And so from his perspective, you can forget the odds of whatever it is, in terms of SEC, of the victory and courts. Just set that aside. This particular instance is so absurd that he stated very clearly he would not be willing or capable of arguing. He wouldn't want to argue the opposing side here. And so, with something like that, that's why I'd say, like, even if the SEC is quote unquote like successful, is part of that going to be, just the case that XRP is proven to be a security? I am highly skeptical. And the more I listen to people, and the more skeptical I am that the SEC even thinks that it can do what it says it wants to do. And claim XRP is what they claim it to be. It just doesn't make any damn sense. And just the idea, and another point that John was just driving home in this conversation, was this idea that so many people that hold XRP, like maybe you and I know about Ripple super duper, but not all of them do. I mean, he was talking about individuals investing with, I guess it would have been institutional money, I think is what he was getting at, putting institutional money into essentially like an index fund for crypto, more or less. Maybe it's the top X number of coins, whatever it may be. And so they're holding XRP. It's legally theirs, and they haven't necessarily heard of Ripple. That was just one example. He's just citing... just because you hold the asset, it doesn't mean that you're aware of this one developer building on top of the ledger, is the point he was getting at, I think. And so it's just, there are so many endless reasons, and he really did a great job mapping this out. And he really did take over a week putting this together. And I'll tell you what, also, I wasn't expecting this, but as I was listening, he actually said that Crypto Eddie and Moon Lambo are like part of what we had covered on our YouTube channels. There may have been somebody else too. But part of, I don't know which parts of what we've covered on our channels actually ended up making it into this thing. And I was like, holy hell. And I was like, I wasn't expecting to hear that, because I'll tell you what, like running this channel, I love running this channel, but I feel like I must be feeling rather insulated, because I'm just sitting here behind a microphone and I'm not seeing anybody else. But the truth is, I put this out there and then it gets views, which I really do appreciate. Like, I could not be more humbled by the level of support from the XRP community. But that's why when I heard him say stuff from Crypto Eddie and Moon Lambo, I was like, whoa. I just was like, this doesn't seem like real life. But it's just, you're sitting behind a mic, it's kind of insulated. But it was super cool here. And so it's just kind of interesting. It goes to show you, though, like, we're a community, we are all working together, and I guess we never all necessarily know the impact we have. It's like, whether you're just engaging in social media, or you run a YouTube channel, or do whatever it is that you're doing, just spreading the word around, I think it all adds up. I really do. I think it all genuinely matters quite a bit. So we'll see the way this all shakes out. And another thing I'm looking forward to, there's another YouTube channel out there, Thinking Crypto. Tony runs this, and he's certainly pro Ripple, pro XRP, but his channel's not specifically Ripple and XRP. And he ended up interviewing Greg Kidd. Now, some of you will know who he is, but if you're unaware, let me just quickly catch you up to speed. He's an independently wealthy individual, invested in it was Twitter and Square very early on. He's got degrees from, I think, Harvard and Yale. And he worked at Ripple. He was one of Ripple's first employees, but not because he had to work. He was already independently wealthy. And he had previously stated that he's like, yeah, once I found out about them, and this is in 2013, mind you, he's like, I went there because I wanted to convince them to give me a job. And so he ended up becoming their chief risk officer, so you can imagine having to do with compliance and this and that. And so he was there for a couple years, and he owns a ton of XRP, which he's been quite public about. And so he now owns an investment firm, and so he's a venture capitalist, and his firm is invested in Ripple, the company, and cryptocurrency exchange Uphold, based out of the United States. Now, Uphold specifically, which I've been a fan of, I've been using them for a good 2.5 years to this point, and I use multiple exchanges, but they've been a favorite of mine, and they actually are standing up to this. They've said, it's publicly stated, no, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing in this video, but I highlighted the CEO of Uphold, and he stated, it was like an 8-part tweet series, or he's explaining, no. He's like, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously. He's like, nope, we will not delist XRP or suspend transactions unless it is proven in court that XRP, it's declared legitimately, no longer a question, that XRP is a security, that or if liquidity dries up to the point where they can't drive transactions. But that second part, I doubt that's going to happen, because anybody in the U.S. that wants to transact, they're going to have to open up an Uphold account or use Kraken, or maybe there's some other. But most of the United States-based exchanges, they've already at a minimum suspended transactions for XRP for the time being. So you've got that bold statement where the Uphold's just like, no, we're not doing this. And then you see that Greg Kidd's company has invested in that. And so what I wanted to highlight here is this. Here's what Thinking Crypto, Tony from Thinking Crypto, wrote. Hey, all, just wrapped up my interview with Greg Kidd. We, of course, discussed the Ripple SEC lawsuit over XRP. You don't want to miss the interview. It will be live on Tuesday morning. Topics we touch on. Is he still holding and bullish on XRP? 2. Brad and Chris selling XRP. 3. SEC's actions pre and post Jay Clayton. 4. Can XRP holders sue the SEC? And 5. What happens next? Now, so this again hasn't been posted yet, but I look forward to seeing it. And I will share with you that Tony, after this interview, he stated, I don't know if the tweet's around here. I'm not going to scroll over for it. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So somebody named Brooks, he asked, you buying, selling, or holding based on the interview? Tony responded, I'm holding. I did buy some same time Grayscale did, but not buying anymore at the moment. So even after the interview, he seems rather positive about this. I guess that's a good sign, right? And what he's talking about with Grayscale, that's an institutional entity, crypto hedge fund, that when everybody was panic selling, they bought little over 12 million XRP. It was at the tail end of 2020, so they're obviously long-term bold. They think that they must think that this is not going to go in favor of the SEC in terms of XRP being declared a security. Now, as far as Greg Kidd, looking forward to seeing his updates, and so he wrote, he retweeted what Tony tweeted out there and wrote, "It was a pleasure meeting you, Tony. Thank you for having me. We look forward to seeing the final video on Tuesday. Meantime, please check out our recording, which we will share here tomorrow." And so that I thought, oh, awesome, because I've been aware of Greg Kidd since, I don't know, probably summer of 2020. I could be wrong, but I think the first time I came across him is when he was interviewed on a Digital Asset Investors YouTube channel. I think that's the first time, could be mistaken. But that's the first time I can certainly recall. I was like, oh yeah, and it was just an incredibly interesting interview. And he's just so optimistic for the long-term viability of Ripple and XRP specifically. And just knowing what his background was, that he didn't have to jump in, but he's like, yeah, he just kind of said, like, yeah, I want to go work there. And he did for a couple of years when he didn't need a damn job. It was really fascinating. And so I suspect what we're going to find, especially based on Tony's response, I'm guessing it'll be things along the lines of the SEC is being ridiculous, and probably point out rationale for why it doesn't make a damn bit of sense that XRP could ever be declared, especially in 2021, as a security. And so, and also, just to add to the surrealness of all this going on here, I retweeted that Greg Kidd's tweet and wrote, "Very much looking forward to it. I want to see this interview. Can't wait to see it." And so Greg Kidd responded to my retweet and wrote, "Thank you, Matt." And I was like, oh, really? It's like, of course I know who Greg Kidd is, but he know, like, this is Moon Lambo, but he knows my name is Matt. So I was like, how about that? He knows about me. I was like, it's a weird freaking day for me. And it's amazing. That's why I just thought I'd highlight it, because look, don't take it wrong. I am humbled by all of this, but it just goes to show how, like I was sharing a moment ago, it's like running a YouTube channel like this, you don't see, it's like, I do feel insulated because I'm sitting here, I'm staring at a microphone as I'm using these mouth words, but imagine if I don't know what it would be like if everybody that would ever listen to this video were all in one room at the same time. I wonder if I'd freeze or something. Like, oh my God, public speaking. No, I'll tell you what, actually, as far as public speaking goes, I've always been fine. Like, it's normal to get nervous before you publicly speak. It's very normal. You're weird if you don't. I mean, maybe if you do it enough. But then I always found that anytime I was publicly speaking, as soon as I got like 10 seconds, 5 seconds into it, whatever it is, it's good. It's more like the like nervousness leading up to it, but once I start talking, I'm always fine. So maybe I'd be fine anyway. But I just thought it was just wild to see that John Deaton mentioned me in the video, and then Greg Kidd knows that, like, who I am. I was like, how about that? So look, I just want to share with you ultimately, as far as the odds, I would rather be Ripple than the SEC at this point. I'll just say that. I don't know what. It's hard to find, again, actual data, not that it matters in terms of winning or losing, because the SEC does bring cases all the time that they lose. It does. And so even if they win most, I would hope so. Otherwise, they're really just, I'd be like, what are you regularly bringing to court that you should not be? And that's why it's like nothing against the SEC as an entity, but what they're doing here, they are absolutely wrong. And it'll be proven, I believe, that to be found that they're on the wrong side of history here. So unfortunately, they've really financially harmed a ton of people. And it's not just the finance side. Like, this is a scary thing. There's all sorts of people out there that are emotionally harmed, and that should not be taken lightly. People that are, can you imagine? I mean, I'm sure many of you can. I'm sure if you're an XRP holder, you probably were harmed by this. It's a virtual certainty. And just like, again, all the emotional stuff that comes along with it, this is why I'm so repulsed by what's occurring here. But just don't forget, despite how scary this all sounds, there are all sorts of people that say, no, the SEC is wrong, and I think they have a leg to stand on. He's heard it again from attorney John Deaton, who's very firm on this. He thinks that it's a slam dunk, just the part that we care about most, specifically on whether or not XRP is a security. Slam dunk. Then you've got the director of the SEC, a former director of the SEC, Andrew Serezny, who is running the legal team for Ripple, leading the charge against the SEC. So think about that. Former director of the SEC going to court against the SEC and saying XRP, of course, is not a security. And there's all sorts of others, too. So I suspect it's all going to go well. And on top of that, this all flies in the face of other G20 nations. It's just, come on. This is the only department in the United States that is claiming this, and also, that's not a virtual currency. Well, obviously, I mean, if they're claiming it's a security, that wouldn't be virtual currency. And also, the United States is the only country on the planet making any such charge. That's got to freaking tell you something. And so, we'll see how this goes. I know it's not fun in the meantime, but I'm optimistic. I don't know for sure how it's going to pan out, but I am very optimistic especially after hearing from people that have a law background, how they feel about all this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Greg Kidd had to say in this interview with Tony from Thinking Crypto. And after I have a chance to check that out, I'm sure I'll be mentioned and sharing with you my thoughts on it. But I have a feeling the way that it's going to go, just in a general sense. But I want the specifics. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And I think really just hearing from people in the know, I think it'll help people feel better, because even though we don't know exactly how this is all going to turn out, part of the reason that people end up getting anxious and end up fearful, it's just the idea of not knowing, because we're not in a position where a legal perspective, unless you actually have a law background, like you wouldn't know what the implications necessarily of all this would be. And so it is good when I hear people that are so firm and so in the know, and their background, whether it's a law degree or whatever. In the case of Greg Kidd, I just cited his background, but he is in the know. It's what I found is the more I've learned since these charges came out, a little before Christmas against Ripple, the more I've learned, the less scary it sounded, and the more confident I felt that Ripple indeed is on the right side of this. Even if they end up settling or paying a fine for this or that, fine. But I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I suspect it will indeed be okay. But I'll go ahead and wrap up there. This is probably going longer than I intended it to, but whatever. It is what it is. Would love to hear what you think in the comment section below. And thank you again so much for all of the support. It's amazing to be part of the best community in all of crypto, the XRP community, hands down the best. People from all walks of life, thoughtful individuals. Just the support that we provide each other, it never stops blowing my mind. I'm so thankful for all the support that I've been receiving. My channel's just been growing like crazy, especially over the last few months or so. And I just want to take another opportunity to say I will never take that for granted, and I appreciate each and every one of you, period. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.